All right, you guys, this is Wyliehawkins with FFL All-Star. Today we have two very, very special guests. I got my buddy Clint Olson. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And then I also got Bailey Jaber. How you doing, bro?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me, Wiley.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, this is strictly going to be an in-home training today. So, Clint, you're helping between 50 to 60 families every single month, right?
Around that, yeah.
What's your biggest month you've ever had personal production on terms of families helped?
69.
69?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm going to beat you this month.
Do it. I like a good challenge.
Good.
Let's go.
And then, Bailey, what about you?
My biggest month was 61 families helped.
61 families. So, guys, if you're helping 20, 30, 40, 50 families, these guys are going to go through how to set the table. That's going to be the first thing, how to set the table, how to have structure, which for me was the hardest thing that I had to learn in the beginning because, you know, like in the home when you're going through everything, as you're a new agent or trying to get to these production levels, it's hard to figure out, you know, what you have to hit in the house. So we'll go through how each one of us set the table, and then we're also going to go through how to find the why. And if you guys could just touch on, like, Bailey, why do you think it's so important to dive into the why for the clients? Like, if you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I find it very important to figure out that why within the first few minutes of the getting into the appointment, simply because that gives you leverage right from the get-go. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm very assumptive from the get-go. The second I walk into the house, figuring out that why, again, very assumptive, kind of figuring out who that beneficiary is, you know, who the beneficiary is, whether it's the spouse, kid, brother or sister, you know, and that's kind of give you leverage to, you know, who's kind of picking up those pieces, who's going to take over the mortgage, who's taking care of those final expenses. But again, kind of figuring that out right at the beginning really sets you up for success towards the end of the appointment.
Yeah, and I love how you do it in the beginning because it gives the client and yourself like a good idea of what problem you're going to be solving today. And then all you have to do is, you know, plug the hole with the product. And then, Clint, if you could sort of touch on, like, why is it important for you to actually have structure in the house? Or maybe talk about how you didn't have structure and now you have it.
Oh, when I first started, I was all over the place. I was just trying to beat around the bush, trying to get to the application, and I get to the application, and it give me all these objections. And as I started going, I realized that I would prefer to be very, like he said, very assumptive and be very strict and assertive as far as like what's going to happen throughout the appointment, right? Because when you do that, you're capable of getting all the objections out at the very beginning. Right. So when you tell somebody, we will go through some financial questions, we will go through some health questions, we will submit an application, we will find something that you qualify for or fits within your budget. It's not like a can. It's not like a we might. It's we will.
Right.
And if they have an issue with that, then I can kind of address it. It's a lot easier to overcome it at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I love that. One of the things before we get into the word tracks and all that fun stuff is I was thinking about, like, every time we go anywhere, like when we're driving around, we're pretty much like directed by stoplights, by like signs, everything. Like we always have like a roadmap of what to do. And so when we get in the client's house, they're like, oh my gosh, what's going to go on today? So I feel like it makes them feel more comfortable. They understand what's coming next. And then they also like have like a guideline of what's going to happen today. So I feel like it makes the client more comfortable. But I want to go through 3 scenarios. So I want to role play me and you. Let's do... You do a lot of mortgage protection, right?
I'd say about 90% mortgage.
Okay. So let's role play on how you set the table with a his and hers. You know, I'll be the woman, I guess, or you want to rock, paper, scissors?
Wiley, you're married.
Yeah.
Please, you're married.
I'm married.
Marrying Bob. We're good to
Fantastic. All right. So if you could just set the structure with us. Guys, if you're taking notes, this is really where you can rewind this, hear the word tracks, the whole 9 yards. Let's just be like 61, and I'll be 64 or whatever. Yeah. And then,
I'll be working.
You'll be working, I'll be retired.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good with me.
Perfect. Yeah, so just spend 5 minutes, man, just setting the table and just go right into it.
The main thing is and this is where I wasn't the same at the beginning when I first started FFL, started doing insurance, was I would knock on the door, and I'd almost knock on the door and wait for them to like allow me in. And I learned this one from Sean Mike at convention, or when he came to Denver, is when he knocks on the door, it's like almost right as they open the door, I'm already walking in the door and be like, hey, I'm here for my appointment. I'm not going to sit there and wait for them to be like, oh, or maybe, or whatever. So again, very assumptive. I'm walking in. Again, no couch. I'm directing directly to a table. And again, before I even sit down, I'm putting the lead directly in front of the client's face. And I'm just like, hey, are you just like everybody else? Did you fill this out because you want to make sure that this house is paid off if anything happens to either one of you guys? And if you see there, I'm sitting here nodding my head yes towards you guys because I want them to say yes as well. Again, very assumptive right from the beginning, asking, want to make sure, because if anybody else, if you own a mortgage, you want to make sure that this house is paid off, just for the family.
Do you want to role play it really quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, knocking on the door, going right in. And again, if I have the lead right here, I'm literally putting it right in front of you, Wiley, and I'm just like, hey, are you just like everybody else? You filled this out just because you want to make sure that this house is completely paid off?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. Make sure that we're taking care of.
The cool thing about what I do here, Wiley, is I work I'm an independent broker, so I'm not captive. So I don't represent just one insurance company. I represent about 23, 24 different A-rated insurance companies. So I get sent out here for one reason and one reason only. I do the shopping around. I figure out which one of my companies here is going to be best fit for you and for the cheapest price. That's where I have the carrier credibility. So I'm also putting that directly in front of them. So as I have the carrier credibility in front of them, I'm going over, hey, these are all A-rated carriers, all A-rated through the BBB. And again, I'm assuming you're familiar with a handful of these as I'm nodding my head yes. Because again, these are all companies that, most people have seen: Mutual of Omaha, Transamerica, Americo, John Hancock. So again, very assumptive up to that point. So again, Bob and Mary, I'm here to do one thing and one thing only. I do the shopping around. I figure out which one of these companies is going to be best fit for you and for the cheapest price. So Bob, I'm assuming you guys are going to be each other's beneficiary for something like this. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I'm still working. She stays at home. My wife stays at home, and I want to make sure that I bring in the majority of the income. I want to make sure she's okay.
Got it. Well, we'll go over there a few different options here because, again, it's all state regulated and non-medical. So we don't send a doctor or nurse out here to jab you with a needle or do a blood work or physical or anything like that. It being state regulated, it's based off your current age. And Bob, I got you down at 62, and Mary, I got you down at 64. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So not only is it based off your current age, it's based off your guys' health. How's your health?
Good. We're looking good.
Okay, cool. So yeah. I've got a client worksheet. It's about 3 or 4 questions long based off your age and your health. It'll tell me exactly which one of my companies here will be best fit for you and for the cheapest price. I'll ring in a couple different numbers. We'll take a look together, and I'll get out of your guys' way. Pretty easy process. Does that sound fair enough?
Yeah.
That's where I break out the client worksheet. Client worksheet asks the questions for a specific reason, from income to the amount on the mortgage to the medications, because I'm not going to be promising someone term if they're not healthy enough for term. So that's the crucial part of filling out that client worksheet word for word and calling upline and making sure you're writing the correct product, because it's nothing like giving someone term quotes and you get all your money back, and at the end of the day they don't qualify for that. That's a hard one to get yourself out of.
Let's do this. Let's say Bob brings home $5,000 and then I bring home $3,000.
It's my favorite one. So
okay,
again,
perfect.
And I'll say it exactly like that. Bob, Mary, typically there is going to be a breadwinner in a house. Clearly that's going to be Bob bringing home $5,000. So although I will be looking at numbers for the two of you guys to cover a portion of this mortgage, Bob's going to be my primary concern here, because if we lose Bob's $5,000, like Mary, that's going to put you in a very sticky situation, losing his income. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be tough.
And then on the opposite end here, but Mary, if something happens to you, Bob's more than likely still going to be able to afford bills and keep stuff going on. So although I will be looking to cover
I mean, $3,000 is 40%, so I would say that I'd still be struggling a little bit.
Yeah, I think we want to take a look at coverage on myself as well.
No, absolutely. So we'll be sure to look at numbers for the two of you guys, but Bob will be my primary concern. So we will be looking covering that full mortgage and a portion of the mortgage here for Mary. Does that sound safe to say?
Yeah.
Cool.
What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, let's go through it.
That's where the client worksheet
So
comes into play.
this is what I love about.
And so sorry to interrupt. So that's you finding the why.
Yeah, and again, very assumptive.
Right.
Very assumptive.
Okay, and if you guys are seeing Bailey on camera, one, he shakes his head probably the most out of anybody.
I'm sitting here like this the entire
in
time.
FFL. He's
Bright red face.
Yeah. So I do love that, but I always like how you make them agree and make sure they're following and they're tracking, because like trial closing and just getting yeses up front is super powerful.
And I learned that from Gage Peart, man. Like he gets the client or the prospective client to say yes 15 times before a client worksheet's filled out. We know why we're there. We know what we're filling out. We know who we're protecting. So,
but also at the same time, you're asking questions that require a yes.
Absolutely.
You're not asking questions where it should be a no.
Absolutely.
Not open-ended.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about the psychology of it. 100%.
Well, cool, dude. Is there any last tips and tricks in terms of finding the why or setting the table that you've struggled with, or you just learned recently that you could share with any of us?
My biggest thing, though, is whenever we're looking at actual numbers, when we have that client worksheet filled out, and we may be looking at that full mortgage, the middle mortgage, and the end one, and people, my biggest thing is I love to read someone's body language, because if someone's, sitting back even looking at that bottom amount being a high bill, I encourage clients to start with the lesser amount, get comfortable with that monthly mortgage payment. And Bob, Mary, you guys can add on at any point down the road if that's something you choose to do. So again, I may be downselling, but at least we're getting something on the table.
Yeah, no, and I think that's huge, guys. It's just like, hey, at least you guys have something in place, some peace of mind. We'll submit this, see if you guys get approved, and then everything will be taken care of. Well, cool. Well, Bailey, I appreciate it, bro. Thank you.
Thank you, Wiley.
All right, Clint. So your first year in, you're a Hall of Fame producer, and your first year, I know you barely missed Hall of Fame, but you were running primary final expense, and that's how I started. I think a lot of us get out there and start with final expense, CRM leads, instant leads. So let's role play. I'll just be a 74-year-old guy, male, and no spouse. And then if you could just walk us through how you set the table and then just sort of dig into my why. And let's just go through just full-on role play right here.
My in-home between final expense and mortgage is pretty much identical as far as the way I set the table and the questions I ask. Now, the conversation may go sporadic depending on what the person or the client's saying, but I won't even go into. I'll sit at the table, right?
Yeah, let's go through it.
I'll be like, "Hey, Wiley, how you doing?"
Good. How are you?
I got this lead here. Assuming you sent that in, you just wanted to make sure, God forbid, you pass away. You want to make sure that your kids or family members aren't left with the financial burden. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wanted to get some quotes and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Now, have you gone through this process before?
No, I've sort of looked and talked to a guy on the phone, but that was about it.
Okay. Was that good or no?
It was not good.
It wasn't good?
Yeah, he said I didn't qualify for anything, and it was
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a nice thing. I can work with a bunch of different companies, so it's normal. It's very rare where I can't get somebody qualified. But kind of going back on what you were talking about as far as making sure everything's okay, can you kind of talk to me a little bit about that as far as your biggest concern?
My biggest concern, I definitely want to protect my daughter, Vanessa, and I just really want to make sure my final expenses are covered.
Okay, so it's for your daughter. Okay,
yeah.
What's her name?
Vanessa, yeah.
Vanessa, okay. And how old is she?
She's 28 now. Yeah, she just had a birthday.
Okay. Is she local?
Yeah, she lives 2 hours away.
Okay.
Yep.
And have you had a conversation with Vanessa as far as what's supposed to happen?
No, I probably should.
Yeah, you're 74, right?
Yeah,
you probably should, right? But ultimately, now that you haven't had that conversation, what is your primary concern? What do you want this insurance to pay for?
Yeah, I think my primary concern would just be I didn't want Vanessa to use her money to pay for this, and I don't want her to be in a hardship if I pass away. So I just want my burial covered.
Burial?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to be cremated or you want to be buried?
Buried.
Okay. And I know you said you went through this process previously, and it wasn't a very happy one, right?
Right. Yeah.
Have you had any insurance to cover this type of coverage before?
No, through work before I retired, but after that, I just didn't think about it.
Okay. What's kind of happened in the recent past that made you start thinking about it at 74 years old?
Well, honestly, Clint, I'm 74, I told you, and I've had a lot of my friends and family pass away, and I've just seen that it does take a lot of money to put someone in the grave, and I just know that Vanessa doesn't have that type of cash laying on deck right now.
So you've been kind of responsible for somebody else passing away?
Yeah, I had a brother die about 9 months ago, and we were doing car washes, to pay for everything.
It could be tough.
It was tough.
That could be tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming if it costs $15,000, what kind of hole would that put Vanessa in?
That'd be horrible. It would. I don't think I don't know. It would be horrible.
Okay. Do you own the home?
No, I do not.
Okay. So she's going to have to be able to put you in the ground and make sure everything's taken out and all the other expenses too, right? So you're looking for something smaller, like 20, 30 grand, right?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Okay, cool. And then I'll go into the structure of it.
So that's you finding the why.
Yeah, and I would actually go deeper than that. You gave me 5 minutes. I would spend 10 minutes on that.
What I loved at the end there is he again, very assumptive. I'm assuming you're looking for 20, 30 grand, and that's setting that bottom number pretty high, 20, 25,000, 30,000.
74 years old.
When I dude, one thing I noticed about you was have you and your beneficiary talked about this? Have you put anything into place recently? No. Have you already shopped around Yes. Okay. Like talk about that experience. Why didn't he move forward? Like find pain points. Cause that's a big one, guys. Like
I'm
what you were
genuinely
doing.
curious
Yeah.
on
Like,
why you're 74 years old and I'm sitting inside your house and you never had this before. And
right.
why are you thinking about it now?
Yeah.
Right.
And like, I like how you say why now, because that's one of my favorite questions is like, so how come it's important to you guys like now? And then that allowed me to like dive into the story of like my friends passing, my brother passing. And then you can see the real intent of why they filled out the form. So that's super powerful,
Yeah, and
dude.
when I was new, I would have just taken, I just want to make sure my daughter Vanessa's okay, make sure she doesn't have that financial burden, and I would just take it at face value, right? And then I would continue on, and then all of a sudden, like I would hit all these roadblocks because I didn't really find the emotion in the conversation. You know?
Yeah. No, dude, that's huge. Any last things on the why that you'd want to share?
Just honestly, just keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the way I look at it. Is if you're curious about something, if you're a reasonable person and you're and you're connecting the dots with somebody and what the story that they're telling you, and there's something that's missing, don't be afraid to ask about it, because if you're trying to make a circle and there's like empty gaps there,
Yeah.
like be genuinely curious, and what that does is builds up credibility. It also builds up the fact that you actually are listening.
Mm-hmm.
You notice, like I repeat you.
Yeah.
I just do that naturally at this point. I just repeat. Yeah. So I just repeat it, and what that does is it says that I'm listening.
I'm listening.
I'm listening to you.
It's
Yeah.
huge.
Right?
Yeah, no, that is huge. And like the quality of the questions is just so high. One thing that I want to share for me was, so I'm 22, and when I was started, I was 20, and I was like super, super uncomfortable, like asking people questions like this. And I mean, I'm sure no matter what our age is, like you guys probably were as well, right?
Absolutely.
But I think the most powerful thing you can do is just sit there and like just get uncomfortable, because the more uncomfortable you get, the more people you help, and then that allows you to put more money into your pocket, which is like a true blessing. But I want to hear how you set that. So you find the why, and then how are you setting structure after that?
So that's what I was gonna say. Like Bailey helps so many families.
Right.
I help a good amount of families.
Yeah.
Right. But we have such different approaches.
Very different.
Right. I go through the why, and then I explain, okay, so this is what we're going to do today. I'm an independent broker. Basically, what that means is I don't work for an insurance company. I work for you. I'm here as your agent, right? But I am partnered with about 25 to 30 different A-rated companies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shop around and kind of guide you to figure out what would be the best product and company for your specific situation, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you some very basic health questions, some very basic financial questions, and based on those answers, I'm going to have a good idea of as far as what route we should take, right? I want to find something that you understand. It's not supposed to be complicated. Okay, I want to find something that obviously fits within your budget, not only today but for a longer period of time. And I also want to find something that you qualify for, because if it fits the first two and it doesn't fit the third, it doesn't matter if you can't qualify for it. And you mentioned earlier that
I couldn't.
you're able, right? So that's my sole goal, is to make sure we can actually get you qualified.
Okay.
When we do that, we'll find out. I'll write out some options, figure out what makes sense, what you feel comfortable with financially, and I will help you with an application. That could come back today, or it could take a few days depending on the company, but the goal is to actually get something in place. Once it actually puts in place and you make a payment on it, at that point we have some time to make adjustments need be, right?
Yeah.
And then I say that, do you have any questions? No. Would you like to proceed? I got that from Eric Schmidt. Would you like to proceed? I asked that question, and they had to tell me to proceed after I set that structure. Then when I go through the financial inventory, I spend a lot of time on the finances. I break them down, and at that point, I'm going through the why again. So I go through the why twice. So I go at the very beginning, and then I go once I see the full financial picture,
You touch on it again.
Then I touch on it again and say, okay, now I can kind of see
What's going on here?
What's going on financially.
Yeah, dude, one of the biggest things that I just picked up and that I've added into like my structure setting is like, once we submit this application, you guys will be covered, and it could be today, could be in the next couple of days, maybe a week, if it comes back and they got to do, further underwriting. But once you get approved, the policy will go into effect. They'll take the first payment, and then you're going to have 30 days to up your plan up or down. And I feel like it's telling them, like, we will get coverage. You're going to have peace of mind, but you still have time to adjust it. Like, you're not just locked into it. It takes some sales pressure off the table, which is super powerful.
One other thing to kind of piggyback on that is I hear a lot, and I used to be the same way, is I'll talk to you, right? And I'll be like, okay, I don't see a reason. You seem like you're healthy. I don't see a reason why you couldn't get anything. But for me, it's like a give and take. So I give it to them and then I take it away, and I give it to them and I take it away. I never say, oh, you're so healthy, you'll be able to get anything, right? I make everything seem like a bigger deal than it actually is, because I'm trying to build up that urgency.
Yeah, it's like the psychology of like, don't touch that, and then like you want to touch it, like you can't have that. Now I want it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Which I really like. Well, cool, guys. I'm not gonna go through my in-home, but if there's like any like last things you want to share, like any just like parting, you know, sales tips, any advice for anybody that's getting started or wants to get to that level of production?
Sure, I'll touch base real quick because I struggled on this at the beginning, is, you know, because I used to jump into the client worksheet a little too quick. Clint's got some amazing in-home questions. If you guys haven't been writing this down, you've been missing out.
Rewatch it.
But one thing that a lot of my new agents have been finding very helpful right at the beginning is, you know, and if you're having troubles asking those in-depth questions and figuring out the why, same thing with final expense, instant lead, internet lead, or mortgage protection. Give them the 3 reasons why most people fill this out. 1 reason, you don't have any insurance and you need some. 2, you have some and you're doing some shopping around. Or 3, you want to leave a legacy behind. It goes for the final expenses. You know, A, we don't have any final expenses, burial insurance in place. Yep. 2, we have some, we're doing some shopping around. 3, we don't want it to be a burden on anybody, be a great legacy to leave behind. Yeah. Likewise, same thing for the mortgage. 1, we don't have any mortgage protection in place. 2, we have some, we're doing some shopping around. Or 3, we just want to leave a legacy behind and make sure that this mortgage is completely paid off for whoever the beneficiary is. Yeah. It's 1 of 3 reasons. It's always going to be 1 of 3.
Yeah. 1 of 3. Clint, anything else?
I think for me is, don't be afraid to reach out to people, to other producers, watch training. Don't be afraid to criticize yourself on like what you could have done better or what you did right at the same time when you leave an appointment. For me, I'm constantly criticizing myself to figure out how I can get better, right? But I never got better by myself. Like my in-home and everything I do is a combination of so many different people. Obviously, there's little snippets of what things that I've come up with, but don't try to do it by yourself. Right? Always watch training. Always reach out. Don't ever think that you're comfortable, because once you become comfortable, you're gonna slip off.
Yeah. No, that's huge, guys. That's huge. And if whatever you guys are doing already and it works, don't change anything. This has been great advice from you, Clint. Great advice from you, Bailey. I appreciate you guys hopping on the video, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks, guys.